Politics has a strange rhythm to it. One night the speeches are loud, the signs are everywhere, the yardstakes multiply like weeds after rain. Campaign ads flood every screen and every mailbox. Candidates promise the future. Commentators promise disaster. And everyone insists the stakes have never been higher. And then the votes come in. And sometimes the difference between power and defeat is not thousands of votes, not even dozens. Sometimes it is two. Two ballots. Two neighbors. Two citizens who decided to show up. That tiny margin can shake an entire political machine. It can expose fault lines inside a party and can remind everyone watching that in a constitutional republic, the distance between influence and irrelevance can be measured in the space between two pencil marks on a ballot. Across North Carolina, and especially here in Alamance County, the latest primary results offered exactly that kind of reminder. Not just about who won or who lost, but about something deeper. About whether the Republican Party is adapting to a changing political landscape or simply replaying the same strategies while the ground beneath it quietly shifts. So today we ask the question, can Republicans hold the line in a changing political landscape? Remember, we fight for what's right because it's time to go right.
This is Go Right with Peter Boykin, your constitutionalist for liberty. And tonight, we ask the question, can Republicans hold the line in a changing political march? The sound, the people turn the tide around. Hold the line, time will tell. When the ballots fall and the numbers swell. In a republic built to last, the people always have the last word. The people always have the last word.
Welcome back to Go Right with Peter Boykin. I'm your constitutionalist for liberty. So did North Carolina's primary just reveal a GOP divide that could cost Republicans in November? You know, politics has a funny way of humbling the people who think they've mastered it. For decades, consultants and party insiders have treated elections like a math equation. Raise enough money, collect enough endorsements, flood enough mailboxes, and victory is supposed to follow. Reality has a habit of ignoring those formulas. What we saw in North Carolina's primary tells a much more interesting story. Voters are showing growing frustration with the idea that politics should be controlled by a small circle of established, well-careered politicians who simply rotate through offices while the public's expected to keep voting for the same familiar names. In race after race, grassroots candidates proved that energy, authenticity, and direct voter connection can compete with the traditional political machine. That doesn't mean every establishment candidate is lost. Politics is never that clean. But the pattern that emerged is hard to ignore. The appetite for outsider voices is real. At least in North Carolina, this primary suggests that many voters are no longer automatically defaulting to the most recognizable name or the longest resume. They're looking for candidates who feel closer to the ground level of their communities rather than the upper floors of the political class. And then there's Roy Cooper, who somehow continues to remain politically resilient despite the broader frustration many voters expressed towards long-term political figures. Whether people support him or oppose him, his ability to maintain influence in North Carolina politics stands out as one of the more curious exceptions in a broader anti-establishment mood. But the larger takeaway from this primary is clear. Grassroots politics is not just a slogan anymore. It is a beginning to move numbers on election night. When voters feel disconnected from political leadership, they start searching for candidates who look less like professional politicians and more like the people who actually live in their communities. That shift does not guarantee victories for outsiders every time. Money, organization, and party infrastructure still matter. Yet when grassroots energy starts breaking through those barriers, it signals something deeper happening inside the political system. North Carolina's primary may be one more sign, that the old political playbook is starting to wear thin. Now step back and look at the bigger picture of March 3rd. Across North Carolina within Alamance County, the results suggest a return of familiar leadership figures. Sheriffs, long-term and long-time office holders, and candidates tied to traditional party structures perform strongly. For some voters, that represents stability. For others, it raises a deeper question. Is the Republican Party evolving with the political movement, or simply resetting the same board pieces election after election? The Berger versus Page race shows how fragile that balance can be. A 2-vote margin between one of the most powerful figures in Raleigh and a challenger from law enforcement proves that voters are divided about what direction they want. And the challenge does not stop there. Even in counties where Republicans remain strong, the broader political environment is changing. Suburban growth, migration from neighboring metropolitan areas, and shifting demographics mean holding office is no longer a guarantee. Every cycle becomes a fight to keep ground that once seemed secure. Now here's the Constitutionalist for Liberty lesson that matters beyond this election cycle. A constitutional republic is not held together by party branding. It is held together by informed citizens who understand the job description of government. The Constitution is not a vibe. It is a contract. It limits power. It defines jurisdiction. And it tells public officials what they can do and what they are forbidden to do. And that is why these primaries matter more than the talking heads admit. They're not just picking a name. You're not just picking a name, people. You are selecting who gets to touch the levers of power. And that brings us to endorsements. Now, President Donald Trump's endorsements matter because Trump is not just a president. He is a dominant figure in modern Republican politics and a symbol of a populist revolt against the old consultant class. When Donald Trump endorses someone, it often signals alignment with that movement, and it can shift attention, volunteers, and small dollar donations in a hurry. But an endorsement, even a Trump endorsement, is not a substitute for constitutional judgment. Endorsements are inputs, not commandments. Voters should treat endorsements the way a good mechanic treats a sales pitch. Listen, then pop the hood and inspect the engine. Ask whether the candidate believes in the limits of government, the separation of powers, due process, equal protection, and the idea that rights do not come from Washington, but from God and nature. Because the truth is, endorsements can be about loyalty, strategy, and a coalition building as much as they are about principles. Sometimes they are brilliant. Sometimes they are transactional. Sometimes they're based on information the public never sees. And that doesn't make them evil, it makes them political. The Constitutionalists for Liberty standard has to be higher than politics, and so does the strategy. Grassroots beats money more often than people think, but only when grassroots becomes organized. $1 billion in ads cannot replace a neighbor talking to a neighbor if the message is clear and the ground game is real. And that is why tight races keep happening. Not because the system is broken, because people still matter. Money can amplify. It cannot manufacture trust. Consultants can polish, but they cannot fake conviction forever. A big donor can fund mailers, but they cannot shake every hand. And that is the real lesson of a two-vote race. Power is not permanent. It is rented. And the lease is due every election. Now the hard part. Unity. Party leaders always demand unity after the primaries, as if unity is a switch you can flip. But unity after brutal campaigns is not automatic. It is earned. It starts with humility from the winners and respect for the voters who choose someone else. It requires acknowledging legitimate concerns, not mocking them. It means pulling the best ideas from the losing side instead of pretending they never existed. If Republicans want to win in November in changing areas, especially in bedroom communities surrounded by blue regions, they cannot act like the general election is a victory lap. It's not. It is persuasion. It is turnout. It is trust. It is showing up. It is making the case that constitutional limits and local accountability still matter in daily life. And the future lesson is this. Stop treating politics like a sports rivalry where the only goal is to dunk on the other team. Start treating politics like it actually is, the hiring process for the people who will still decide whether your rights are defended, ignored, or negotiated away. A party can win a primary with endorsements and money, but to keep a constitutional republic healthy, it takes something deeper. It takes citizens who demand principles, not personalities. It takes candidates who remember they are public servants, not rulers. It takes a movement that can fight hard, then govern with restraint. Which leads to the question that hangs over this entire primary. Are Republicans prepared not just to win primaries, but to win November in places that are changing fast? Because the real test is still ahead. November. Folks, thanks for tuning in. This has been Go Right with Peter Boykin. I'm your constitutionalist for liberty. You can check out us on GoRightNews.com, PeterBoykin.com. We're on Rumble at Go Right News, on YouTube at Go Right with Peter Boykin, on lots of different social medias, and on our podcast. Please share and like and follow. God bless. And remember to go right.
Another season rolling in, yard signs rising in the wind, talking heads on every screen, telling me what everything means. Promises like autumn leaves, campaign trails and TV pleas, every corner, every friend, counting down to votes again. Here come the ads again, flooding every town and bend, red and blue across the land. Everybody Wake me up when November ends, when the voices of the people blend, when the dust begins to mend. Wake me up when November ends. Yeah. Wake me up when the storm is through, when the red and the blue remember we're Americans. Wake me up when November ends. Another season drifting by, leaves fall under autumn skies, campaign lights begin to dim. Wake me up when November